George MacDonald said that fatherhood is at the heart of the universe. And ever since I read that, I thought that is such a profound comment. I think it's absolutely true. And so that means that our experience with our earthly fathers, in some ways, sets our hard drive where fatherhood is concerned. And because our earthly parents are sinners, there's a really good chance, a really good opportunity for that hard drive to be wrong, or at least in some form. I was even talking to one of my boys today about how they see God. I'm doing a Bible study right now by Jack Miller, the Sonship series. Maybe some of you have heard about it. It's a pretty famous Bible study, but he is also really interested in looking at the idea of adoption, and distinguishing between the orphan mind and the mind of a son of God, right? How we think about ourselves and God as a result of adoption and what that means to us. And one of the exercises in the book was that we would off the cuff, not theologically, how do we think about God? When you think God, what do you think about? But personally, if someone says, so how do you see God? What's the image that flashes into your mind? And we were talking about this. And for me, the image that flashes into my mind, and I know it's not theologically accurate, I could give you a very theological definition, but just from my gut, I see God's back, not like Moses did, because he's holy and I'd drop dead if I saw his face, but because he's remote, he's disinterested, he's
looking the other way.
And that has so many implications. And I've had real experiences with a living God that tell me that's not true. Not just that's not true theologically. That's not been true practically in my recent experience.
Yeah.
But on my hard drive, that's what's written. Mm-hmm. And I asked my son, so how do you see God? And his picture is
not me, right? This isn't me.
No, this isn't you.
I don't remember this conversation.
Another one of my sons.
Some other son.
He said, God is waiting for him to hurry up. He's very impatient. He's waiting for him to hurry up and put things together because he knows what's right. So hurry up. What's your problem here, kid? Just do it. Can't you just do it right? Can't you just get it right? And I looked at him and thought, well, that's probably my fault.
Because get that one honest, kiddo.
Not only do you have the perception that I had of God as you were growing up, kind of feeding you all the time, but also that perception that I had figured into how I treated you. And I was oftentimes very impatient with you. And why can't you know what the right thing to do is? Why don't you just do it? And, kind of tapping my foot, and I'm sure that I am at least partially responsible for that. Of course, this kid's really sweet. And he said, well, I probably didn't need your help, Mom. Pretty sure I would have felt that way even if you hadn't been like that. Which gets to that, what I said initially, that his message here, I think, cuts across the grain of what's inborn, that in some way we are preset because of our sin nature to consider ourselves separate from God, remote from God, and then to revert to trying to be God because we don't know him or his love or trust him.
That's rough, man. It's a really, really vital and difficult distinction to make, I think, because if you had asked me that question when I was a little kid, I don't know exactly what my response would have been, but I do know that it seems to me just instinctively really logical to stand in judgment over the areas of my life and habits that are not lined up with biblical best practices. I mean, the Bible may not be primarily a self-help book, but there's a lot of great advice in there. And not all of that advice is advice I routinely take. And so isn't it a godly perspective to stand over yourself and say, this needs work. I need work. And isn't that taking God's side is basically what I hear myself saying in the background. Well, God, of course, holds this opinion. He wrote this book full of helpful advice that I'm ignoring on a regular basis. He must be standing alongside me saying, yeah, you need some work. And even if he's doing it benevolently, even if he's doing it with a wink and a nudge, he still holds that opinion. And Manning comes alongside you and says, no, that evaluation of yourself, of the imposter, that evaluation is contradicting the evaluation of God that he has made already in Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
That blows my mind. That's something that I constantly have to rehear and relearn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Because it's
agree with
so
you.
counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Mhm. That idea that he has, that God is tender in his heart towards us. I recently did an exercise where I wrote down how I felt about someone very close to me. And so I picked my children, and I wrote down my own feelings of love for my kids. And then I was asked, okay, now that you've done this, I want you to turn around and I want you to consider that God loves you like this. And it was a disconnect for me, because um, is it possible that God loves
Mm-hmm.
me the way that I love my children better than I love my children? Because, of course, my love for my children, as we've already established, even today in this conversation, is flawed. And his love is certainly not. But I think that the element there that is the disconnect is that element of personality and tenderness, that he would like me, not just
Mm.
love me in a legal way. Thank God that he loves me in a legal way. I hang my hat and my heart on that. But that he would love me in a personal way. And when he looks at me, not be disappointed, but smile at me and just foundationally delight in who I am is
Mm-hmm.
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.